to open the video that is being streamed live. Look for the chat box on the side or bottom of the video player. This is where you can type your message. Click inside the chat box and use your keyboard to type out what you want to say. You can type words, use emojis, or even ask questions. Once you've typed your message, press the Enter key on your keyboard or click the Send button. Your comment will then appear in the chat for everyone watching the live stream to see. If you want to send another comment, just type it in the chat box again and press Enter or Send. Your new comment will show up below your previous one.
President Donald Trump is changing America and the world. President Donald Trump is changing America and the world. For us in Jamaica, there has been some interest in some of the changes, including the scrapping of USAID, backward movement on climate change and immigration, and what the US authorities are doing to undocumented immigrants. Good day. This is the Frankly Speaking episode 158 for March 9, 2025. We invite you to subscribe to the Frankly Speaking Jamaica Podcast channel. During this show and afterwards, of course, we welcome your comments on the space provided as identified earlier. You may also send your comments by WhatsApp to 876-503-9995. Frankly speaking, it's on immigration that we want to put our focus today. Immigration. It's been more than 6 weeks since Mr. Trump returned to the White House with a blistering pace of action and an all-embracing agenda, or so it seems. But the initial pre-election and post-swearing-in rhetoric suggested apocalypse now for the undocumented immigrants. When we took on this issue on the Frankly Speaking Podcast live on February 2, 5 weeks ago, our guest, Texas-based immigration attorney Kalfani Fullerton, was quite sanguine about what would happen. And he was not among those fearing for the worst or that the sky was going to fall in. Mr. Fullerton is our guest again today as we look at what has happened on immigration in the U.S. since January 20. Our panelists today are Desmond Richards and Mary Grange. Well, we also expect Mary to give you a taste of some wonderful things, and I hope I can get a chance to speak on the Fort Rocky development, sad situation. But anyway, let's go first of all to the immigration issues. Welcome again, Mr. Fullerton. Please give us an assessment, sir, of the first 6 weeks of the Trump agenda on immigration from your position as an attorney, immigration attorney in Texas.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. McKnight. Thank you for having me. And in terms of my assessment of the last, I'd say 6 weeks of this administration, the Trump administration effort to, at what we call mass deportation, but in immigration law, they use the word removal, the removal proceedings. And based on our assessment, it is not going well as the administration would expect. So therefore, the administration basically removed the ICE director. They removed them. Because they removed the director because they're not getting as many deportation as they would expect. Two, now the administration realized that it's very hard for them to deport undocumented immigrants. So therefore, they're asking undocumented immigrants to go to DHS, Department of Homeland Security, the United States Department of Homeland Security, to register. Yes, there's a registration law in the US, and it's a criminal offense if you don't register. However, that law is not, we don't think it's enforceable. We think it's unconstitutional, and that law has not been enforced since it was enacted. So now the administration is saying, well, you register. Then I will say to my clients, since the administration is basically treating undocumented immigrants as criminals, basically, you should not adhere to that. You should not register because it violates your Fifth Amendment right, in terms of self-incrimination. You should not have to incriminate yourself as if you're being charged basically with a criminal offense. You have the right to remain silent. You watch that on television all the time. You see that you have the right to remain silent. And then to compound this issue, we have over more than, I would say, 40 immigration judges that are no longer in service with, they call it the EOIR, Executive Office of Immigration Review. That is the department that is responsible for immigration judges, hiring immigration judges, and hearing cases. And so we have a huge shortage of immigration judges. There are approximately about 737 immigration judges in the United States, but we have more than 3.5 million pending immigration cases in the United States. That's pending. And so it's very difficult for 737 immigration judges to handle that amount of cases. So the most hearings are going to be if you are what we call non-detained, meaning you're out of custody. It probably will take an average of 4 years to get an immigration hearing before an immigration judge because of the shortage. And also the Trump administration fired or requested at least more than 40 immigration judges to leave the EOIR, Executive Office of Immigration Review Service.
So you are saying, Mr. Fullerton, that the drive to deport, or what do you call it, have people removal proceedings against many people. That has hit some snags, some legal, political, and other snags. But it is still going on. I'm sure you are still seeing clients who are fearful or who have said that they might be caught up in the net. Are you seeing people like that?
Yes, Mr. McKnight. Yeah, people are still fearful, obviously. They're fearful, and it's still going on, but it's not on the large scale as the administration would want it to happen, because they do not have the infrastructure in place for this mass deportation as they predicted and what they intended to do.
So you said a while ago, before my colleagues or the comment, you said a while ago that they are requiring now for registration with the DHS. And you said that that was a legal position, and if you didn't register, you could be considered a criminal. But you are saying, you are telling clients, don't.
No, if you're facing possible criminal charges, right? If there you have the right to remain silent. That is the Fifth Amendment
Yes.
in the Constitution. That's enshrined in the Constitution. I represent clients, and you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to go out there and incriminate yourself if they treat, because immigration is supposed to be what we call quasi civil, a civil proceeding. But when you're going to turn it into a criminal proceedings, then you have the right to remain silent. So I think the undocumented immigrants should assert their Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate themselves. And plus, I think the law as written is vague, it's ambiguous, and it's unconstitutional. And it should more than likely be challenged.
But let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, Counsel. Educate me on this. If you are not a U.S. citizen, are you protected by the U.S. Constitution?
Yes, the Constitution protects everyone within the borders of the United States. Everyone. Once you have the protection of the United States Constitution. That's the first thing. When you're gonna do like your citizenship, when you want to become a U.S. citizen, that's one of the questions. It protects everyone within the borders of the United States.
Yes. So you are saying that you are advising your clients that they should not obey that rule to go and register. They should stay away.
I'm not saying they should not obey. My thing is they should assert their Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate themselves. That's all I'm saying.
And by going to register, is that incriminating themselves? Is that the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Fullerton, that for Jamaican who's listening and knows his relatives are up there and will seek legal opinion, what is the general advice to people now who are undocumented and who are there in various stages of trying to get, but they're undocumented? What's the general advice, and who is most at risk for deportation?
Okay.
I just thought somebody asked me, who is most at risk for deportation?
The people who are most at risk for deportation are those people. I mean, we all come to the United States. Most of us come here to seek economic opportunities. Some of us come to because we have fear. But most, I think, Jamaicans, we come here for economic opportunities. So when we get here, if you don't want to be at risk, just continue to live your life, live a crime-free life, make sure you don't do anything so that you get put into custody, because if you do something, if you get arrested, more than likely ICE, Immigration and Custom Enforcement, will pick you up, because most police agencies, they have relationship with ICE, especially under the Trump administration. So you don't want to get in trouble. If you don't get in trouble with the law and you don't go to the Mexican border, the Arizona border, or California border, in those areas, and where you don't go through checkpoints, you stay in the inner cities, well-populated area, more than likely, chances of you getting deported is about 1%, if that much. They're not most of the persons that get deported from the United States, they were apprehended at the border, or they commit some form of crime, or sometime in rare circumstances, you have a workplace raid, or They go to your house to pick up someone who has committed a criminal offense, and you have never committed a crime, but you were there and you're an undocumented, so you get placed in deportation proceedings. But more than likely, if you have no criminal history and you've been in the United States for like 2 years, you have the right to a bond hearing, and if you get a bond in places like New York or Houston, your probable case is going to be finished in about 4 years.
And in that period, what happens to you? In that period of while you got the bond, what happens to you?
You're out on bond, you can walk around and everything as long as you show up make sure you show up for your court dates, get a good lawyer, and you could apply for certain relief if you've been in the United States, for example, for more than 10 years and you have a parent or a child, but you would have to show extreme and unusual hardship to that citizen parent or child or permanent resident spouse or your spouse, U.S. citizen spouse. If you can show extreme and unusual hardship,
Mr.
then
Fullerton,
you could get a green card.
Mr. Fullerton, tell me, do you sense, you as an attorney and you as an immigrant yourself, do you get a sense that the tide is shifting away from the U.S. welcoming immigrants, especially Black people from other parts of the world? Do you get a sense that the tide is shifting, that is the legislative and political context is shifting away from high immigration rates?
Definitely. It's even before, I'd say, the Trump administration. The U.S. has been shifting from that because it's most of your immigrants that are coming are, Black and brown people coming into the U.S. And I don't think the U.S. is as welcoming as it was when I came here 51 years ago. I've seen it. I've seen the different presidents, and I think definitely it is shifting.
In the meantime, how are Americans now? American blacks who are U.S. citizens, yes. How are they being treated now? Do you see any change?
There's a huge change in terms of Black people in America. You
Yes.
hear the issue of DEI, right? They try to use this diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? In America is still very racist. There's a lot of prejudice in employment, business opportunities, and in government contracted and all that, where Black people continue to face obstacle after more than 200 years. So the previous administration put in place what we call diversity, equity, and inclusion, where but that doesn't mean you're not qualified, and it's used in the wrong way. DEI, for example, somebody like me, is a prime example. I went to law school. I finished number 4 in my law school class. I was a member of the law review, moot court. I was president for the student bar association for the law school, for example. But 37 years ago, when I finished law school, basically there's hardly any opportunity. Plus, you're an immigrant in Texas. They did not have those opportunities. So over the years, attorneys like me and all that, we fought so that our this young generation, they would have opportunities to work at these different law firms, non-black law firms, and they came up with what we call diversity and inclusion. And you getting a job doesn't mean that you're at a law firm and being a black person does not mean that you are unqualified. You get it because you're qualified. The program is
Mr. Trump is
basically,
arguing that he wants to go strictly on merit.
if he
He
goes,
doesn't want to have any inclusion or diversity. He wants strictly on merit.
but the problem is that if they go strictly on merit, guess what? You'd have more black folks in these corporation, in this corporation, in law firms, in every sector of society. You would have way more, especially among black women. Black women are the most educated class of people in the United States. You know, we saw one who was run for vice president, most qualified. But we that's the thing. If they were to go by merits, they don't do anything by merits. They use the good old boy system in the US, and that's a problem. If they go by merits, then strictly by merits, oh man, you'd have a whole lot of black people in university, in the prestigious universities, colleges, and all that.
But this racist bent is not really about Trump, or is not caused by Trump himself. This racist bent that is being spoken of and is seen in America now, and people are feel more comfortable in putting the racism on their sleeve. It's not Trumpian, is it?
Well, racism is within people. If you're racist, you're racist.
Yeah.
No one can really cause you to be a racist. If you are, you just are. Whether it's Trump or that, but his policies, President Trump policies, are not in favor of black people, because the first thing he did was to do away with 60 years, more than 60 years of civil rights. He signed an order, executive order, getting rid of the Civil Rights Act that President Johnson signed. He reversed their executive orders, and they intimidate companies to do away with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because a lot of the white males, they're not going to universities. A lot of people don't know that. They're not.
Okay. But before we close this section, Mr. Fullerton, I don't know if Mary had any particular comment, but I'm going to ask you to respond to the argument we raised before we came on here. Where do you see the whole drive now, the immigration drive, the effort to remove large numbers of undocumented residents? Where do you see that going over the short term, over the next year or so?
Well, I think that the administration will continue its effort at what we call mass deportation. They're gonna try their best, and basically it's not gonna be successful. It's just not going to be successful because they don't have the infrastructure in place to do that.
And your advice is for undocumented residents to
stay quiet, take care of your family, work, do not get in any trouble with the law. Stay away from that. And if you're stopped, you drive in a car and you're stopped, just stop, obey the officer, give them whatever information they need, and don't get in any argument and move on. More than likely, a police officer is normally not going to turn you over to immigration just like that. Just be courteous, take the ticket, get your lawyer, and fight the ticket if you get stopped.
And in the meantime, you would tell Jamaicans, just
Steer-
don't bother
steer-
with the attempts to migrate to get to the States legally. Just go through the processes and see.
Yeah, if you come to the U.S. at the southern border, they can just turn you back. They don't have to. They don't have to let you in. They could have expedited removal, unless you have a valid, credible fear asylum claim.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mr. Fullerton, Mary, you're okay? I want to thank you very much for giving us an update. We realize the sky has fallen in. We realize that you had said, and we had got some negative comments that people were saying that you seem like you want people to relax. Some of the comments we had got at the time, last time, when this thing was on them and Mr. Trump is going to throw them out. Well, it hasn't been happening as you said, as fast as it was initially said, or likely, or apparently intended.
Yeah.
But they're going to keep on coming on
Yes.
with the attempts to what do you call it? The removal process against undocumented immigrants. Thank you, Mr. Fullerton. That's Mr. Kalpan Fullerton. Thank you very much, Mr. Fullerton, for
Thank you,
being with us.
Thank you, Mr. McKnight. Thank you, Mr. Richard, and thanks you, Miss Mary Grange. Take care, all right, and this is a very important, program, and I implore the audience and tell your friends, subscribe to it, because knowledge is power. And thank you for bringing knowledge to the Jamaicans and the Jamaicans in the diaspora, and to all the other listeners who are not from Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're most welcome. Okay, well, Miss Mary Grange, Mrs. Grange, for weeks you have wanted to talk to us a little bit, and we have been pushing the political and other issues in front of your space. And we want to turn over to you now, even before I come to Fort Rocky. So you take it away now, Mary.
Hi, Mr. Mac. Hi, Brother Desmond.
Yes, sister.
It's March, but for me, with Jewish beliefs, my New Year starts in April. So I'm normally late for the Roman year of January. So instead of stressing and saying, boy, the year has closed and I'm still not up to speed and I haven't gotten everything done, I just take another month or two, January and February, and by March I'm caught up with the year that just ended, and so I'm able to cruise into my Jewish New Year right on time. So if you're like me, that's one way I sort of get rid of my stress, because when you think you're always running behind and your to-do list is long and you're out of time, it causes stress. Today, I am going to talk, however, about resolutions such as managing your weight. And I have three simple...
Managing your... Sorry, I didn't get that.
Your weight. Because your health and wellness...
Weight.
Right. Because in 2025, we will not be as wealthy as we want to be if we're not as healthy as we should be. So I'm going to just give you 3 small tips to manage your weight. I actually went to the EU 5K. I did a 5K this morning with the EU downtown. The scenery was beautiful on the seaside. Everything was just beautiful. So you may want to take up opportunities like these just to increase your activity level, because most of us have very jobs that allow us to sit all day. There's a word for it, I can't remember. But
sedentary lifestyle.
Sedentary is the word.
Yes.
Thanks for that. Yes. So I want to give you 3 tips. One of them, the first is balance, the second is timing, and the third is control. In balance, we want to mix. A lot of us try to diet and we go very extreme. We're not eating, we're on these very unrealistic intermittent fasts, or we're on these very low calorie diets, or all kind of crazy diets which we cannot maintain as a lifestyle. So yes, we can do them for a short time and we get results, but usually we fall off the wagon because they're so adverse and so different from what we really do on a daily basis, so we can't maintain it. So today I want to talk about the balance, which is, for me, is a mix of poison with your food. You want to mix some of what we call the poisons, which are the bad stuff such as the sweet and the salt, which we want to balance that with the
You want to keep some of the poison, that's what you're saying?
Yes, because the poison is what makes us happy. The poison is what reduces our stress level. The poison is what makes us feel good when we eat food. And when you feel good about food that you eat, immediately you feel more satisfied than you can. And you could eat a box of cardboard food, don't feel satisfied, and you keep picking all day, and you get the same result. You're going to gain weight. So might as well you eat the right portions, a nice mix of the sweet and the salt, not overdoing any of it, but incorporate some of the good stuff, more of the good stuff. So that's the balance. And the water, very important. Before your meals, make sure you have a glass of water before every meal. That sort of helps to bulk you up and give you a greater level of satisfaction faster. The second tip is timing. A lot of us may eat the right thing, but we eat it at the wrong time, so we get the wrong result. You see how that works? So you have to think about when you eat your meals, plan them around good time and you are active, so that by the time you begin to slow down, your metabolism begin to naturally slow down because you're cruising into bedtime or things like that. You are not filled up and going to your bed with a full stomach of food. So for me, what I do in the morning, I break my fast in the morning and I intermittent fast at nights when my body doesn't need energy to work. So from 6 in the evening till 6 in the morning is when I do my intermittent fast. Consider, most people know what they take intermittent fast and they're fasting during the day when their body needs energy to move. So it's like you're going against the grain. Work with the grain and intermittent fast at nights. You sleep at nights, that is, whenever you're sleeping. For those who work at day, work in the
Maybe
night.
some people get home at 6, they can't eat before 6, they can't eat till 7, 8 o'clock.
Well, that's not so bad. But the midnight snacking and the midnight eating and the late eating, like after 9, that's really, really bad for your body. And if you're young, sometimes you can get away with it because your metabolism will work it up. But you're not healthy. Slimness is not healthiness. And we need to sometimes not confuse that. You may not gain the weight because you do the wrong things, but you are not giving your body the right things to be healthy. So if you get home late, try to eat. I try to eat. I understand that, Mr. Matt. So by 8 o'clock most times, I've cut off my eating. And then I'm not breaking my fast again until 12 hours later, like in the morning, 7 to 8 in the morning, right? So that helps you. And it also helps that you eat in the mornings. When you break your fast, you want to eat your heaviest meals by 3 in the afternoon if you can. When you go home in the evening, I have a salad. Because when you eat your lunch, because you work, you eat your lunch, I consider that my dinner. So when I get home in the night now, I will have a salad and tea before I go to bed. So even if you eat at 7, 8 o'clock, it's not so bad that you eat the whole big plate of rice and peas and curried goat and that at 8, 9 in the night. That's just terrible. Don't practice it. The final thing is control. We want to take control of what goes inside of us. And if you buy food on the road all the time, you don't know what you're eating. You don't know what you're getting. Somebody else's hands is going on that food, and you don't know how heavy their hand is with the salt, the sugar, the butter, the oil, and all of the bad things that is going to make you unhealthy. So one of the things I'm going to say, take control of your food, take control of your budget as well, because when you take your lunch to work, you know what you're eating. and you also get to eat for less, healthier food for less. So we want to look at those things. The fast food, I see a lot of people buying Burger King and KFC for lunch. No, those must be delicacies. Once a month, once a year, you can go have a KFC. That's the poisons, what I call poisons. We still need them to make us feel good from time to time, especially when I'm going through a lot of stress. I want to eat my chocolate. I feel for my Popeyes and those things. But you have to exercise control. You cannot make those things an everyday occurrence. You have to eat them as delicacies and poisons because they're
But
poisons.
you were talking about the mix earlier on.
Yes.
And you were suggesting that the so-called poison, things that
Yes.
well, let's just call them things which are not great for us. You are saying still have some of that
Absolutely.
and the other things. And
Yes.
some of those, broadly speaking, are what? Some of those things which are not just good for us.
Like the chocolate, a lot of salty snacks, the snacks. So let's go snacks. Snacks has its place. So the snacks of the chocolates, the chips and all of those things that we like to eat, the KFC, the Popeyes, the Burger King, all of those feel-good food are what I call the poisons, right?
Fast food. But we're not saying, but I just want to make sure that we're not saying to anybody that these things poison you.
No.
Right,
They're the
okay.
things that are less healthy for us if we're going in a healthy diet. It's things that you
Okay.
don't want to have too much of or have them too often.
Okay.
So,
And what
for
are these
example,
fantastic things that we should have plenty
more
of?
vegetables, more fruits, more water,
Oh,
less rice.
dull.
Yes. And for us in Jamaica, we have grown provisions that are healthy. So more sweet potato is one of the new fad now that people are saying are healthy foods. So you want to eat more natural foods versus the processed rice and those things that you buy off the shelf. Less flour, less dumplings. But yes, if you're going to make your stew peas, you definitely want to put your spinach. So don't cut that out. But have your stew peas maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe three or 4 times a week.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Desmond, we're coming to you shortly for your take. I see you looking very skeptical there at Mary as she spoke. You
Brother
don't seem
Desmond
to.
is fit because he's practicing these things that I'm talking about. You look how Brother Desmond look fit.
No, I am inclined to agree with her, you know. And I take the point that fast food, and I have to use the term, it poisons your system. Because what happened over a period of time on fast food, you develop some health issues. And at that time, when sometimes you discover these things too late. So I am in agreement that you can have these delicacies, your fried chicken, those fast food, you can have them, but you must just have them occasionally. You shouldn't try and use them as your daily meals. And as Mary pointed out,
for some people, they are convenient, Desmond. Apart from
yes,
the taste for some of them, and I mean, some people
and
they are convenient.
yes, and you know that there are lots of Jamaicans who don't believe in eating ground provisions. You'd be surprised to know that.
Why?
Lots of Jamaicans don't tell them to eat bananas, cocoa, yam, potato. They are not in that, you know. They are not in that. Because
I didn't know that, Brother D.
yes, lot of Jamaicans, because they are socialized on rice, flour, and foreign food.
They don't grow up in the country, I see.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we take on that also. That's another time because we are not food secure in Jamaica because we're not I mean, the things that we consume a lot of, we don't produce them. Like that same rice you're talking about, that same flour you're talking about, that same rice, that same flour, we don't produce them. Even the mutton, as we say all the time. We'll take that on again. And before I come to Desmond for him to get a little shot at this issue, I've been racking my brain about the way we respond to the environment in this country. Frankly speaking, I'm trying not to fall into cynicism. You know, we have laws. We have agencies like NEPA, Jamaica National Heritage Trust. We have people who have studied all this. And yet we go along. Now Fort Rocky is the latest point of controversy. We don't know who gave any permit for clearing the sand and the vegetation on this really sensitive and delicate part of the coast near Port Royal. But they have been scrubbing it for a parking area next to an entertainment venue that's supposed to be ready for a party next week. Frankly speaking, there are people who still point helplessly at the preparations being made in St. Anne by a Chinese company Czech to build hundreds of upscale units, housing units, on part of the crucial Duns River watershed, on land which was the grave of ancestors. And they're even cornering one of the rivers in the area onto that development. Now, there was one public meeting about it in St. Anne's Bay a year or so ago. Many concerns were raised. Many were left unanswered. Then nothing more. And Czech is going ahead. They're sending in the bulldozers. Now, bulldozers are an important part of development in many ways. But is it too much to say that all our municipal corporations, every single one of them, and NEPA, and the JNHT, and the other agencies should vigorously defend all protected areas in Jamaica? And not just be there to respond when non-government agencies and individuals show that there is a breach, of course. Frankly speaking, we know that many people won't react. This is not a mass issue that people will take on. People are not taking on even issues that affect them every day. Because many of us can't see the connection now and can't see the connection with the future. But it's high time for us to stop these little wasting wars about our limited space on this rock that we call Jamaica. That's my contribution to this business of the environment for this week.
Well, I have to I think it is important to keep reminding our audience, listeners, and viewers that the government must do something about police killings. Again, we are not saying that the police must surrender to gunmen. That's not what we are saying. We are saying that we want our security forces to be responsible. We want to minimize, reduce the distrust. And I don't see and can't understand why the authorities don't see that by equipping the police with body cams is also protecting the police. I don't see, they can't see why they can't see this. What we want them to do is to put the police in a position where they can produce credible evidence that they were involved in shootouts, right? We know the stories over the years, and we have had cases to prove that the police on a number of occasions have put out false statements about shootouts. The most recent one occurred in Rockfort there late last year, where 3 alleged gunmen were cut down. The police said they were cut down in a shootout. Indicom charged the policemen for murder. We want to stop that. And we just want the authorities to get it in their heads that this is modern Jamaica. This is not Jamaica of the 60s. Let us equip our security forces to provide us with credible evidence that we can trust their words.
Desmond, I support you on that very strongly with the body cameras. At the same time, reminding you that the fact that the policemen have been charged for murder does not mean, that in itself does not mean that what they said happened didn't happen. That is going now to the courts. But the reputation of the police will be enhanced, especially in a climate of lack of trust, by body-worn cameras. If they wear the cameras, it
Are
would
we
be
saying that
enhanced. It would be good
Jamaica
for the
have?
police.
Are we saying that Jamaica have the most daring gunmen in the world, where they see a party of police, a party of policemen go on an assignment, right? And here it is, one man, two men taking on a party of heavily armed policemen. Why is this happening so regular?
Thanks to our special guest on immigration, attorney, Jamaican-born Kalfani Fullerton, the regular presenters Desmond Richards and Mary Grange. Winnie Anderson Brown wasn't able to be with us this week. Also the technical producer Joshua Black of Joshua Black Media Services. I invite you to listen to Frankly Speaking 5-minute podcast, midweek podcast, posted normally on a Friday. On behalf of all of us, I'm Franklin McKnight. Until then.